tips do we have as dietitians when dealing with parents when they think their child needs to lose weight or they're concerned about their child that is also losing weight? So both ends of the spectrum.
So we're going to start at one first.
Yeah.
So when their parent thinks they're overweight, are we assuming from that the kid actually isn't overweight?
No, so if
they've got kid's actually overweight, so we're dealing with a kid that is overweight, and then how do you tell the parents that it's their fault?
Yeah, so how would we go about managing parents who are concerned about their child that is overweight?
Yeah,
and they've come to see us.
Yeah, so okay, okay, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is the kid actually overweight?
Yes.
Yeah. You can go first, pediatric expert.
So I see a lot of kids on the spectrum, both losing weight as well as overweight. So as Tyson's already alluded to, the sticking factors they know. The difficult part is how you have the conversations about diet and change in nutrition with a kid being present in the room at the time. So what I don't like, and what most of the time the parents have already done prior to me getting there, is
focus on weight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that they put a lot of the blame towards the kid, either being sedentary or all they do is want to eat junk food or sweet foods and things like that, where at the end of the day, the primary person involved and the only person that should be blamed, I guess, if they want to use that term, is the parent. So to start with, I try and change the conversation. So instead of talking about losing weight, restricting what they're eating, cutting back, blah, 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 that is a starting point. So for me, when I work with children, yes, if they're very overweight, I'm talking if they're over the 97th percentile for their weight.
And they're like 50 percentile of height.
Well, no, often with overweight children, I say this.
But what if they're 97th percentile height plus, then they're sweet?
Yeah, well, you didn't let me finish my sentence.
All right.
So a lot of the time, children that are overweight will also be very tall, just because these days it tends to produce overnutrition, which tends to accelerate height as well. So most of the time there isn't a vast difference between their height tracking on whatever percentile and their weight. But at the end of the day, if their weight is over the 97th percentile, they are overweight irrespective. And I rarely see a kid's weight and height on the same percentile if they're overweight. So yes, they'll be taller, but not necessarily over the 97th percentile, rarely. So
yeah, I'm just saying, so if they were, they're sweet.
Absolutely.
When they're 75th or below that, and then they're also...
Yeah, so the gold standard is if their height or their weight is 2 standard deviations, so 2 percentile differences below or above, then there's room for concern. So generally, say for example, if their weight was on the 50th percentile, but their height was only on the 5th, then I'd be really worried about that.
Yeah.
You're right. So 2 standard deviations away from the other, and that's the same with being malnourished or as well. So
Underweight.
yeah, so that is my gold standard, and I use that as a discussion point. We also then...
How do you frame the conversation?
Yeah, so actually we'll often get out the guidelines and the CDC charts, because a lot of the time, so that is the only chart that you should be using. So CDC.
Link.
Yeah. Centre for Disease Control. They have their charts, and then with that, if you're wanting to report back to GPs,
there's a different one for boys and girls. Don't use the same one.
And there's a different one for young kids. So you should be using the WHO charts for that, and then the CDC for the kids above that.
The World Health Organization chart. Who?
Yeah, who? Me. So then I will use that as an opportunity to educate the parent as well as the kid. And the kids don't really understand that in great level, but it gives them some perspective. And I can talk about 50% below, 50% above. So that's a good starting point. Because often the parent will be either super stressed out or not realistically aware of the problem. And that's a starting point.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of the parents that have overweight children that come and see a dietitian often have had possibly weight problems before and
Not
now they're
always.
on a health streak,
Not always.
or that they have disordered eating tendencies?
Up here, no. When I was working rurally, it was collectively across the board. They were overweight, their children were overweight.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess it's a localized thing based on the culture around the area, I guess. But
Yeah. So generally here, no. For whatever reason, it tends to be the outlier. So, they've got quite a number of children for the most part, and there's this, one child is, heavier and so often gets a little bit more attention, blah, blah, blah. The parents do tend to be reasonably, weight conscious. So they're a little bit more proactive about helping their children, whereas the other spectrum is if they're overweight, then that's an awkward conversation, blah, blah, blah. So they don't want to generally come and see a health professional unless they're referred to a bulk bullying clinic,
We're stereotyping, but it's pretty much what we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is always what we've seen, not so much, what happens, but definitely what we see.
In terms of me, I guess, framing conversation around a child that's overweight, I pretty much just talk about nutrition for growth and energy rather than ever mentioning the child's weight, especially when the child's present. If the child isn't present, I guess you can have a more frank discussion with the parent, but I would pretty much just talk about, all right, we're not going to try and lose weight, but we're going to try and prevent any further weight gain while their height catches up, if it's the 2 percentile thing, but depending on their age. So if they've hit their growth potential in terms of height, then you need to kind of start looking at it strategically. But again, not putting them on a diet or mentioning diet or weight is important, especially like 12, 13 or now younger. But
there's also value in being in assessing that situation as it stands too. So whilst we don't want to advocate weight loss, there's also instances where some children actually do need to lose weight, but you wouldn't frame it that way.
No.
And it would be a consequence of change or increased output or something like that. I may often take a waist measurement depending on the kids, because kids obviously aren't really well formed at that younger age. So a waist measurement is a good measurement to take, even though there's no standard. It's just a measure to show change. Because weight may not be something that you do take. You may or may not, that's up to you, but I would like to see some idea of what it is. Often I will take heights and weights just to show them on the scale, and the parent might want to know what it is, but often I would actually just get the kid
scale, she meant the chart.
Yeah, and I'd get the kid to turn around, so they often wouldn't see the number if they were really conscious about it, and I would just write it down as it was. And then the way in which I gauge food is we talk about the family, and so often we will talk about servings and portions of food and how much they're eating, and then maybe the way in which I would have that conversation would be, okay, well, you're eating for a child that is 5 years older than you or 3 years older than you or something like that, and so we want to try and improve that and try and rein it in a little bit. A lot of the time the kids are generally overeating discretionary foods, and under eating other things. So the parents already modified their diet, they've taken bread out of their diet or something like that, versus actually discovered the underlying problem. A lot of these kids are also generally quite sedentary or don't like to be in sport because it's hard work to carry that weight around.
Bullied because of their weight.
So for kids, that should be a big part of change, is getting moving, and a lot of the time the parents have got issues with that. So
I guess in relation to diet though, like you say, a lot of the time they're overeating discretionary kind of foods, so often the meal plan or the diet that you give them will often have more food, but just better quality food. So it never seems like, oh, they're eating less and now I need to lose weight. It's just like, well, no, you're actually eating more food. It's just the right food in the right amounts. So so then you can kind of not even talk about a diet in general. You just go towards. And
the best approach with kids, and certainly with parents, is that division of responsibility. And I really like that stuff from Ellen Slater, where the parents decide what is provided, whereas the kid then dictates the how much. So therefore, that open platter style of eating where you can provide them with a range of different foods and then they decide how much they want to eat, because often I'll find that once that weight conversation has happened, kids often do a lot of sneaky eating and hiding food, which is not good, and that's not what we want to actually have happen, because then they feel like they've had food taken away from them. So at least if you start top-down approach and you go, right, instead of actually cutting back, you just improve the quality, like Tyson said, and then they get to dictate the how much, and then you can work on that. So
yeah, I didn't know about that. That's good.
So, and then obviously the responsibility on the parent to provide the choices, the food and the environment, which can, obviously then allows the kid to grow normally, in conjunction with their, social and environmental stuff that's going on. So, yeah, because at the end of the day, weight gain is abnormal growth, and that is for a reason, because kids generally don't want to undereat or overeat, and they have really good internal cues. So whatever's happened in their environment to change that, that's what you want to get back to, because kids are innately good at eating what they
being underweight
want. So, as in if children are losing weight or if children are underweight.
Well, the question was it if they're overweight or underweight?
No, generally it's overweight, but then also what happens if kids start to lose weight, particularly from like an eating disorder point of view, and how would then parents...
Question for another time will be eating disorders, but I'm going to cover that.
But yeah, so I guess if going on from that, if a kid is underweight, there's a lot of push from parents to constantly be feeding them, and for kids that are generally quite in tune with their appetite, that will be really hard for them, because they'll stop when they're full and they'll eat when they're hungry. So, if a kid's underweight, I'd just be doing the assessment to start with and look at their height and their weight and just see where they are. And obviously, if they're naturally a smaller child, then they obviously are going to be slimmer. There's also the unfortunate thing these days where, you can't win, you're either here or you're here. And so because we get used to seeing so many people carrying weight, we actually aren't used to seeing a normal, healthy, growing child that actually isn't covered by a lot of so there's that stigma associated with we're clearly not looking after your child because they're starving, why don't you feed that child? And then that parent's constantly feeding it.
I got that from like 17 till now. It's every family occasion. Got a lot of extended family that are probably a little bit bigger,
rounded,
than
enjoy their food.
And I was the odd one out, and even though I was eating more than enough and more than them half the time, I was like, no, you're too thin, you need to eat more.
Yeah, so it's either or, like you can't win, can you? But yeah, that kicks you in the guts from a parent's point of view, because then you think, oh well, I'm doing something wrong, there's something wrong with my child, they're malnourished, I'm not looking after them, and certainly from a mum's point of view, be like, just eat,
difficult conversation. But what about parents that are too involved with food or doing fads like paleo and clean eating and all that crap, that then implement it with their child, and then as a result the child's underweight and they're wondering what the hell's going on? How do you frame that around? So obviously the parent maybe overfeeding their child, or maybe there's discretionary foods, but then there's the parent that could be restricting the child too much and causing not only weight issues, but then further food related and food relationship issues. Oh
yeah, I've definitely seen that. Not so much the dieting, because they don't seem to impact the children as much. Often they'll just
reckon?
Yeah. No, they don't seem to implement that diet change with the kid.
Like paleo.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I certainly haven't seen that a lot. But in the same respect, I guess I would frame it to the fact that the child isn't choosing that approach, and it's different to a vegetarian, I suppose. But as well as that, they're well nourished, they're grown, they've done. So what you do with that is finding your body, but for this body it needs a wider range and a higher range of calories to probably
pretty much just talk about
growth.
it needing other things than what theirs does, and then
and
framing conversation.
Significantly affecting that foundation, which is really important. So it is a hard conversation, I guess, but at the end of the day, if you instill a bit of fear of God in them, which sometimes you do need to do. I've had that particularly with mums and parents that are vegetarian or vegan or something like that, and then they obviously make their children eat that way, which is fine, but a lot of the time these days vegan and vegetarian diets aren't really well balanced, so the kid ends up eating just pasta and gets iron deficiency. But certainly not ideal for growing children, and they also then don't learn to eat a wide range of foods, which is important for them. And I've seen that, you know, mums that don't eat meat, and then all of a sudden the kids like, oh, I don't know that, and they don't develop, you know, the mouth skills and the, you know, the chewing, you know, the jaw rotation and stuff like that. You need to obviously chew meat, and then they avoid things like veggies and stuff because they don't know how to eat it. So, like, it's a roll-on effect.
Cool.
Good questions.
This is the end.